themselves ready. This is their second mock trial. So I expect we'll see hear lots of objections and some challenging questions for witnesses. We ask in the audience that you maintain your distance from one another, and if you need to use the bathrooms during the performance, they are here to the left near the nurse's office. Without further ado, would the court please stand for the Honorable Judge Allen?
You may be seated. We'll start with opening statements. Defense. I'm sorry, plaintiffs, let me start with the opening statement.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bailey Gifford, and I'm a lawyer representing plaintiff Scott Walker in this case. Scott and the defendant, Tanya Brewster, first began dating in high school and got married shortly after they found out that Tanya was pregnant with their son TJ. After about 2 years, they decided to get divorced, and Tanya requested to have full custody over TJ, which Scott would like to do. Since then, TJ has been living with Tanya full-time and sees Scott periodically. I'd like to start off with a few case laws that are similar to this case and can show how Tanya was negligent in her actions. First, we have New Colombia versus Morgan. Fred Morgan was convicted under criminal storage of a firearm when a 12-year-old boy he hired to clean his house found Morgan's gun and shot his inmate. Now, Fred Morgan lived alone. He had no kids, so you would think that he wouldn't have to take any precautions to secure his gun. But New Colombia Criminal Code 105 states that all guns must be in a secure, locked container, no matter what. Ms. Brewster failed to uphold this law when she didn't secure the gun that was in her house, which allowed TJ, her 13-year-old son, to be able to access it whenever he pleased, which eventually led to him shooting his younger brother, Jesse. We can also take Johnson versus Moore into account, as it states that if a parent knows their child's inclination towards dangerous activities, then they must take precautions to prevent any danger. Ms. Brewster knew that TJ had a fascination towards guns and even took him to counseling because of it, but she still did not take responsibility and locked the gun away. Yes, it's true that the gun is owned by her boyfriend, Carl Newhouse, but she still allowed it to come into her house, onto her property, automatically making her liable for any damages sustained by that gun, whether she knew it or not. As for witnesses, you will hear from Dr. Sandy Turner, who was a consultant on the New Colombia Senate Committee. Dr. Turner actually helped write New Colombia Criminal Code 105, which is the basis for the charges being brought against Tanya Brewster today. You'll hear from Scott Walker, who will demonstrate how, while he was not as involved or responsible for parenting TJ as Tanya was, he recognizes his need to secure a future for his son Jesse, who is now paralyzed for the rest of his life. This paralysis will cost $975,000 to provide him with a healthy and secure lifestyle. And finally, you'll hear from TJ, whose testimony will demonstrate Scott Walker's active and constructive efforts to guide him in a safe direction regarding guns, while Tanya did very little. The prosecution recognizes that this is a comparative liability case. However, Judge Allen, we ask that you assign Tanya Brewster 95% liability.
Defense, your opening statement.
Good afternoon. My name is Sam Bagley. I represent the defense of this case, defending Tanya Brewster against Scott Walker. Tanya Brewster is a hardworking mother, and she does her best to raise TJ in the right ways and to improve the lives of those around her. Scott Walker and Tanya Brewster met in high school and ended up having TJ during their time in high school. Because of this, they ended up getting married. However, due to Scott's immaturity, that marriage did not work out and they were divorced. Like many teenagers, TJ has had a difficult time finding the right friends and staying out of trouble, and has started to go down that path. Tanya saw this, and she engaged in a diversion program with him, where she was able to see all of the challenges that teenagers face in modern day society. Scott refused to acknowledge this and did not attend any of the diversion program meetings with TJ and Tanya. Carl Newhouse is now Tanya's new significant other, as Scott grew and developed his own new family, so did Tanya. Carl moved in with Tanya 2 years ago, and during that move-in process, Tanya learned that Carl is a legal gun owner. She knew about TJ's problems and resisted Carl bringing this gun into the house, but he ensured that it was needed for protection, and he developed a strong trust in her by showing documents from his safe gun storage course and what was required for him to legally obtain the firearm. Carl failed to safely store this firearm, and that is when TJ got his hands on it under Scott's supervision. Scott's new family, Jesse Walker, was injured. This parallels closely to the case Colombia versus Scowcroft, where trust was at play in the safe storage of a handgun, and a child was injured by that handgun because it was failed to be safely stored. Scott is claiming that Tanya is liable in this case because she was the one who allowed for the injury to occur, but during the time of injury, TJ and Jesse were under Scott's supervision. Scott decided that rather than watching a 13-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 2-year-old, that he would go down the street to drink with his friends. He left TJ in charge, and this is when TJ brandished the weapon and further injuring Jesse. If Scott was present, injury would not have occurred, and that would make Scott the proximate cause of injury in this case. Scott was negligent, and therefore Tanya is not liable at all for what has occurred. Today we're going to hear from 3 major witnesses, Carl Newhouse, the gun owner, and Tanya's significant other. Then you're going to hear from Tanya Brewster, the mother of TJ. And then third, Terry Bodner. Terry Bodner is the individual in charge of the diversion program and has insights on the issues that surround teens. We ask that you determine that Scott was negligent and that he was the proximate cause of the injury that was sustained. Thank you.
Plaintiffs, would you call your first witness?
Please oppose TJ Walker to stand.
I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help me God.
is your name? What is your name?
TJ Walker,
How old are you?
13.
Who do you live with?
My mom, Tommy Brewster,
What's her address?
4952 Oak Tree Lane, Shepherdsville, New Columbia.
What school do you attend?
James C. Carter Junior High School.
When did your father leave your mom?
When I was 3, my father left my mom.
Why did your father leave?
My mom and dad didn't really get along, so they divorced.
How was your relationship with your dad when you were growing up?
I didn't really see him. He went off to the army and never talked to me.
Who was the main caretaker in your life?
My mom.
When did your dad start showing interest in you?
After he got remarried and had kids, then he started showing interest in me.
Did you ever spend time alone with your dad?
Yes, sometimes we went to the movies and to the shooting range.
Was your dad aware of your interest in guns?
Yes, but I was interested in guns far before I reformed my relationship with my dad.
Describe in what ways did your father try to bond with you with guns?
He promised me that he would get me a BB gun for my 11th birthday, and I was really excited about it.
What boundaries did your dad set when it came to gun safety?
He told me that I could only use it when he was around and in a safe way.
What did Tanya think about the BB gun?
My mom did not like the gun, so she forced my dad to get rid of it.
How is Tanya as a mother?
She's okay as mothers go. I just kind of wish she was around more.
Describe how you feel about how you were raised with split parents.
I honestly feel like I grew up all by myself. No one was ever really around.
Your Honor, I would like to enter TJ's affidavit into the record. Please read the highlights of the record.
They say I'm supposed to be responsible for myself because they can't be around to do everything for me, but then they try to put restrictions on me, including who I can hang out with and how late I'm allowed to stay out.
How does that make you feel, TJ?
I honestly think it's really messed up. None of them are really around anyways. I don't see why they should have that on me.
How did you feel about Tanya's boyfriend Carl moving?
I think that's super messed up. She never even asked me if it was okay that he could move in.
Who's the better parent?
My mom, but again, as I said, neither of them are really around.
When did your mother start having a reason to worry about you?
When I got into a fight 2 years ago at school,
What role did you play in these school fights?
usually my friends were the ones who pulled like switchblades and stuff, but I just sort of watched.
What was the result of your misbehavior?
I had to go to diversion. He said he was going to drop the case, but she started asking him questions. He talked about what would happen if they didn't drop the charges, and then stuff like counseling and diversion. When my mom heard about this diversion thing, her eyes lit up. She said she thought it was the best thing for me. The officer said that I really didn't need it.
How often do you go to diversion?
Every Saturday with my mom, I go visit Terry Bottom.
What kind of things do you talk about with Terry?
Mainly fights and guns that happen in school, that kind of thing.
Are you honest with Terry?
Sometimes, but sometimes I make stuff up just to make her happy. There really is some scary stuff going on at school. For instance, I told them that some of my classmates sneak gun into the school. My mom, of course, is real worried about all this. I wouldn't tell her what's really going on if she and I were talking. But with Terry there, it's easier.
How do you feel about Terry?
Terry's alright, and like I said, I feel much more open to talk with her than I do with my mom. Terry doesn't know my dad or anything about him, so I don't want to see how she can have this opinion of him.
How did you know Carl had a gun?
He and my mom had a really big fight about keeping the gun in the house, and I overheard it. But when I approached my mom about it, she said nothing. Later on that day, she was reading something about safe storage of handguns. I asked her about it because I wanted to know more about Carl's gun, but she just got really angry and wouldn't talk about it.
Who taught you about gun safety?
My dad.
How did you find the gun?
I was working with Carl in his basement or garage, and he asked me to get a tool out of his toolbox and unlock it.
What did you do with the gun?
Sometimes I would take it to school.
Did you take the gun anywhere else?
I took it to my dad one weekend.
When did you show Jesse the gun?
When my dad left, I showed the gun to show Jesse because I thought it was really cool and I wanted to show it off.
How long was your dad gone?
I don't know.
Where exactly was your dad visiting?
My dad was at a neighbor's house. I don't know the exact address, but I know where it is. I'm going to show you. We're on the street right now.
What did you do after Jesse was shot?
I freaked out. I didn't really know what to do, so I called 911.
I'd like to enter the 911 call.
Operator, TJ, he was shot. How? Where did the gun come from? I said, it's Carl's gun. I got it from Carl. Operator, did Carl bring the gun over? Where's Carl? I said, I don't know. I got it from his toolbox. Operator said, you brought the gun over, TJ? Yeah. Operator said, you got it from Carl's toolbox? And I said, yeah. Operator said, was the toolbox locked, TJ? I said, no. Where's the ambulance? Jesse's dying.
Describe how you're feeling in this moment.
I was panicking, I was confused, having a 13-year-old, and I'm a 13-year-old, and I'm watching my half-brother bleed out in front of me, and I was really ill. Operator says, who's Carl TJ? Is he a friend of yours? I said, Carl, he's my mom's boyfriend. Operator says, he just leaves a gun lying around in an unlocked box. And I said, yeah, where's the ambulance?
Had you not had Carl's gun, do you think this would have happened?
Yes, I had planned to buy a gun from a guy at school, but Carl made it easier. Thanks, Carl.
Defense, do your cross exam.
Please say your name for the court.
TJ Walker,
What school do you attend?
James E. Carter Junior High School,
What grade are you in?
8,
How old are you?
13.
Tell me about the relationship you have with your father.
My father wasn't really around when I was young, but recently he came back in my life.
So, isn't it true that he abandoned you and your mother?
Yes,
And you were only 3 when he abandoned you, correct?
yes. I'm glad you came in now.
Growing up, you didn't have much of a father figure, am I right?
No.
I'm not?
Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't listening.
You didn't have much of a father figure
I
growing up.
did not have a father figure growing up.
So your mom had to raise you with no help from your father, correct?
Can you repeat the question?
Your mother had to raise you with no help from your father, am I correct?
Yes.
Your father went to the army for a couple years, right?
Yeah, why aren't you asking him these questions? Why are you asking me?
When he came back from the army, the effort he made to see you was still very minimal, right?
No, he started to express interest in me a couple of years later,
What age were you when he started showing interest in you?
about 6 or 7.
And when he realized it was important to try to raise his child, he would take you to see movies and get pizza?
Yeah,
How often was this?
as often as Tanya would love me.
Good to know. How do you feel about your father's new family?
They're alright. I mean, I really don't feel like I belong with them, but
So you don't feel belonged with your family?
they're not really.
Can you speak a little bit? I'm having trouble.
So you like his? Do you like his new family?
Yeah, they're alright.
I would like to answer evidence to the record.
We always had to spend time with his new wife and his new kids, and never felt like I really belonged with his new family.
So as a way your father would attempt to make up for his absence, you would bond over guns.
What?
As a way that your father would attempt to make up for his absence, you guys would bond over guns.
Sometimes,
Your father would take you to the shooting range,
occasionally.
and just you and him went to the shooting range, am I right?
I'm sorry, can you slow down, please?
Just you and him went to the shooting range, am I right?
Yes,
And just you and him went to the shooting range on multiple occasions, correct?
I just answered that.
Multiple occasions.
Yes, I've already said that.
Is it true that your father influenced guns in your life based on how you guys spent time together?
No, I was interested in guns prior to him coming back.
But he is supportive of your interests.
I wouldn't say supportive, he just found a way to bond with me.
You got a BB gun for your 11th birthday?
I did get a BB gun for my 11th birthday, thanks to my mom.
Who bought you the BB gun?
My dad. My dad never wanted to spend time with me when I was growing up. He just left my mom and me to survive on our own.
You have a good mother, correct?
I'd say.
She is hardworking and does everything she can to provide for you, am I right?
I don't know what she does.
When you got in trouble, she would take action to prevent more instances from occurring, correct?
Stipulation.
Excuse me?
Stipulation.
Staying.
Objection, speculation. Speculation.
No,
She works really hard to be successful and to provide for us. I guess it's cool how she put herself through college and started her own business and everything. I appreciate that she's done it. No, she's mostly done it for me.
Thank you, DJ. So, do you recall when you started seeing your counselor?
I recall when I started seeing my counselor. Yeah, after my fight,
Do you know the month?
August.
When Carl asked for your help in the basement, he asked you to get a screwdriver. This is when you found the gun, correct?
Yeah.
Do you recall what Carl had said to you?
Yeah, he told me not to touch it.
So Carl set a boundary with the gun being off limits, did he not?
Yeah, we kept it unlocked.
Do you recall the date you brought the gun to your father's?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Do you recall the date you brought the gun to your father's?
Yeah, December 4th.
When you visited your father's on December 4th, what did you have planned?
Hanging out with Jesse and Kim and my dad. Talk football, like bros. You know? I wanted to watch football and talk to my dad, or play checkers with Jesse, just to shut him up. Sometime that afternoon, my dad said he was going out for a while and that I was in charge.
According to your statement, you just wanted to watch football and talk to your dad a specific afternoon, correct?
Yeah,
But your father had other plans. Am I right?
I guess.
So your father put you in charge since he knew he was going to be gone for a while.
I'm sorry, please slow down.
Your father put you in charge since he knew he was going to be gone for a while.
Yep.
This is when you decided to show Jesse the gun, correct?
Yes.
You knew since your father was absent, like he was most of your life, you could get away with impressing Jesse by showing him the gun.
Sustained.
Your Honor, let me rephrase. Due to the lack of supervision from your father, this is when you decided to show your brother the gun.
Is there a question?
Yeah, I'm asking when your father left, is that when you felt comfortable showing Jesse the gun?
Yeah. But I pulled it out in school, I could have done it at any time. Since my dad was gone, I decided to show Jesse the gun. I knew it would impress him.
Thank you, TJ. After the ambulance arrived and your father was talking to you, do you recall what he had told you?
Yeah, first he told me it was all my fault, and I started crying, and then he said it wasn't.
What was that?
At first, he told me that it was all my fault, and then I started crying, and then he said it wasn't.
I would like you to read this from your affidavit.
He said, "You're old enough to know better. Nobody can watch you 24 hours a day." I was so upset already that after he said this, I started crying. I guess my dad felt bad because then he put his hand on my shoulder and said, "It's all right, TJ, you with me. It's just as much my fault as it is yours."
So your father took fault for not supervising you, isn't that correct?
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
It is of my understanding that if your father was home, you would have not taken up the gun.
Objection, speculation.
No.
Sustained.
So you plan on having a gun regardless of Carl having one?
Objection, speculation.
Sustained.
She said that.
It's a he, thank you very much. I would have gotten a gun eventually, even if Carl didn't have one. I was planning to buy one for my guy's school. In fact, if Carl had one in his basement, just saved me money.
So you did plan on having a gun regardless of Carl having one?
Yeah, when I had money.
So you probably would have shown your brother a gun either way, right?
Objection, speculation.
Overruled.
The cause of this incident was due to the lack of supervision from your father, correct?
Objection, conclusion.
Sustained.
Okay, TJ, let's recall meeting with your counselor. You didn't always tell the truth, did you?
No.
So you could be lying about your answers today in court.
I took an oath though.
TJ, did your father's absence set this tragedy in motion?
Objection, conclusion.
Sustained. Plaintiffs, may call your next witness.
Plaintiff calls Scott Walker to the stand.
I am Scott Walker. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Real quick, as Garrett, not as Scott Walker, I think we should give Mr. Powell a quick round of applause for making this class.
That's pretty stuff.
I'm just stalling, so.
State your name for the record.
My name is Scott Walker.
How old are you?
I'm 32 years old.
What is your current address?
2633 Grant Avenue, Shepherdsville, in Colombia.
And what do you do for a living?
I'm a construction foreman for Bronson Construction Incorporated. I've been there for the past 7 years as a foreman.
When did you first meet Tanya Brewster?
I met Tanya during our sophomore year in high school.
Describe your senior year.
Our senior year, Tanya became pregnant.
After your senior year, what happened?
After our senior year, Tanya and I decided to get married, and shortly after we had TJ.
When was TJ born?
TJ was born on November 3rd, 1980.
After the marriage and TJ was born, how was your relationship with Tanya for the first couple of years?
For the first couple of years, Tanya and I elected for me to go to work for the construction company, a different one I work for now. And Tanya decided to stay home with TJ.
Did your relationship ever start becoming a conflict?
I would say after those first 2 years of marriage, it started becoming a conflict. We argued over things like the house, money. She said I wasn't home enough, even though she had elected for me to go to work and for her to stay home. So I'd say those were the biggest things we started arguing about.
Sustained.
Did Tanya start working?
Yes, she did. After the first year of marriage, she started working.
Objection narrative.
Overruled.
When did you agree to get a divorce?
Objection.
What?
Unestablished facts. We've already established that they got a divorce.
Yes, overruled.
Objection.
What did you say?
Please.
We got a divorce on May 17th of 19, I don't know what that has to do with anything, 1984.
How old was TJ when you two divorced?
TJ was 4 years old.
Why did you agree to let Tanya have full custody?
Soon after we were divorced, Tanya immediately demanded full custody of TJ. And being young, I elected for her to.
Objection narrative.
Overruled.
After the divorce, how was your life?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
After the divorce, how was your life?
Wasn't great. I was fired from my job at the time.
Sustained.
After the divorce, how did you get fired from your job?
I was late.
Objection, unestablished facts.
Sustained.
Why did you join the Army?
I felt like I needed structure. I was young, immature. I felt like that could give me that.
And what did you do within the Army?
I worked for the Army Corps of Engineers. We built things like bridges, railroads, roads. I never went overseas, never saw any combat.
So you rarely ever handled weapons, correct?
That's correct.
Your Honor, I would like to submit the following statement from Scott Walker's affidavit into the record.
I decided to join the Army. I think it was one of the best decisions I ever made. Because of my construction background, I worked for the Army Corps of Engineers. We worked on building things like bridges, dams, and roads. I never went overseas or saw any combat in the Army.
Did you ever kill anyone while in the Army?
Absolutely not.
Were you able to visit while in the military?
No, I was too far away, and military, I never had time.
Did you ever come back to Shepherdsville until after your service?
What was that, sorry?
Did you ever come back to Shepherdsville after your service or before your service was ended?
No, as I said, I didn't have the time. I just wasn't available to do that.
Once you did come back, how was your relationship between TJ and Tanya once you came back from the military?
Between TJ and Tanya, you said?
And yourself?
It was good. Shortly after, I felt good about myself. I wanted to be closer to TJ. I didn't want to intrude on TJ and Tanya's relationship, though. So I tried my best not to do that. I was trying to be closer to TJ.
What job did you get when you came back?
Worked for the company I work for now, Bronson Construction.
And did you get promoted?
Yes, I was promoted this morning about 5 months after I got the job because of my
Do you believe you were promoted because you were responsible?
Yes, I believe it was mostly because of background, I had in construction, I had a lot of experience.
How old was TJ when he came back from the military?
TJ was 7 years old.
When did you first meet Claudia?
I met Claudia shortly after I came back to Shepherdville.
When did you two get married?
We've been dating for about 6 months, and then got married.
How old was TJ when you decided to marry Claudia?
Around the same, 7 years old.
And when was Jesse born?
Jesse was born on July 3rd of 1988.
And when was your daughter Kim born?
Kim was born on May 28th of 91.
How did you feel after having 2 more children?
I felt good. I felt great, actually. I felt obligated to become a stronger father. As I said before, I just didn't want to intrude on the boundaries that Tanya had set forth between her and myself with TJ. I just didn't want to interfere.
Did you previously try to reconnect with TJ?
When do you mean?
Before you started your own family or in the military?
While I was in the military, you mean? Is that what you said?
Yes, and after the divorce.
No, I wasn't related to the military, if that's what you mean.
Did you ever miss child support payments?
Yes, I did.
Objection, unestablished facts.
Sustained.
Why did you not consistently pay child support?
Being in the military, I just wasn't able to. I definitely regret not being able to pay.
Yeah. Objection, unestablished.
Sustained.
Do you believe you neglected your duty as a father to TJ?
I'm sorry, can you please speak up?
Do you believe you neglected your duty as a father to TJ?
Originally, yes. I was young. I was immature. Not being able to be there.
Objection, narrative.
Sustained.
Scott Walker, please read in the record the following statement from your affidavit.
I felt a strong responsibility to be a good father. I wanted to get closer to TJ too, but I did not know how to change the patterns Tanya and TJ had established.
When you did talk with TJ, what did you discuss?
TJ definitely had a strong interest in guns, mostly gained from TJ's peers in school and the neighborhood.
Why did you introduce TJ to such a dangerous hobby?
I don't feel as though I introduced TJ to it at all. As I just said, I feel like it was mostly introduced by TJ's peers.
Did TJ ever include this hobby in school?
Yes, TJ got an A on the book report, I believe, on the subject.
Do you believe? And did this hobby ever form any conflicts?
With Tanya, yes. As I said before, I bought TJ the BB gun, thinking it would be something that could be educational for us. I felt like it was better.
Sustained.
How did this argument end?
I ended up having to get rid of it.
After you returned the BB gun, how did TJ behave?
TJ was upset towards me.
Did he ever ask about how he could buy a gun?
Yes.
Unestablished facts.
Sustained.
Did she discuss getting a gun another way?
Overruled.
Thank you.
Yes.
Leading the witness, though. He's asking if he ever asked where to buy a gun.
Yeah, sustained.
When did the shooting take place?
The The shooting took place on December 4th of this past year, 1993.
Where did it happen?
It happened in my house, specifically in my basement.
Were you home during the incident?
I was not, I was just house over at my friend Lewis's house.
Did TJ know where you were?
Yes.
Why would you leave TJ alone?
I felt as though there was no danger present. Felt as though TJ was responsible enough to handle the kids for a short period of time I was gone.
At the time, were you aware of the gun TJ had taken from Carl?
No, absolutely not.
If you were aware, do you believe you would have left her?
No, definitely not.
Were you not worried about the kids being in danger?
No, as I said, I felt there was no immediate threat.
Have there ever been any other major issues at your house when the kids were there?
No.
If you had stayed home, could the incident have been avoided?
Objection, conclusion.
Sustained.
How long were you gone for?
I left, we were watching the football game, and then I left at halftime, and ended up staying for about the rest of the game at my friend Lewis's house. Came back after, I was gonna go back after that.
How did you find out that Jessica had a shot?
TJ came right up to Lewis's house, covered in blood.
Once you brought Jessica to the hospital, what happened?
I immediately called Tanya, told her what happened, and recalled her stating that she wished she never looked down into her house.
How did TJ explain to you how he found the gun?
TJ explained to me that TJ was working with Carl on his car. Was asked to go down a toolbox once and saw the gun that was in it, unlocked. And a few other times went to go check it out, and it was constantly unlocked, and she was able to.
Objection. Hearsay. TJ never told Scott that.
Sustained.
TJ told Scott.
Why did you think he was informed okay to leave TJ with a 2-year-old?
Felt as though there was no immediate danger.
Do you believe if TJ did not have the gun, shooting would have been avoided?
Objection, conclusion.
Sustained.
How did you feel after finding out the gun had been Carl's?
I was very upset with Carl when I saved out of Tanya for wanting to be in her home, not safely stored.
No further questions.
Defense, your witness.
Are we able to call a recess? Or like really quick? Just a second. It wasn't discussed before.
We'll have a recess after this testimony.
Please state your name for the record.
Scott Oliver,
And what do you do for a living?
I'm a construction foreman,
How long have you worked there?
past 7 years.
Were you required to pay child support for TJ?
What do you mean?
Were you required to pay child support?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you said when. Yes,
How much money were you required to pay child support?
$250 a month.
You were required to pay this child support through a court order?
That's an answer.
It's
That's not asking the third. That's not asking.
Overruled.
Could you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
You were required to pay child support through a court order?
Your board, yes.
And you were required to pay child support payments through a court order, and you chose to skip these child support payments?
Did you say skip? I couldn't understand.
Yes.
Yes. Eventually, I ended up not paying the child support payments.
And you were required to pay child support payments through a court order, and you chose to skip these child support payments even though you were on a foreman salary?
No, I wasn't on a formal salary at the time. When I started skipping them, I was in the military.
And Scott, how much do you choose to pay Dr. Turner for her witness support in this trial?
Objection to relevance.
Sustained.
I would like to know how much he pays Dr. Sandy Turner.
Relevance. It's not relevant.
Overruled.
Do I have to mention that? Oh, okay. I believe it was $500.
It's $200 an hour. And you can pay this fee, but you couldn't pay $250 a month for child support.
Argumentative.
Sustained.
No, I got it out there. Before you and Tanya got your divorce, when she asked you for help around the house, you fought with her?
No, I did not fight with her. She fought with me for not being around the house, saying that I wasn't home enough, even though she elected for me to go to work.
We would like to enter Scott Walker's affidavit into the record.
After Tanya started working, she kept telling me I had to start helping with TJ with housework. Tanya and I started fighting about the house, money, and TJ.
Thank you, Scott. Why were you two fighting over TJ?
Tanya felt as though I wasn't around enough to be as close with TJ as she would want me to be or as I would want to be, and I completely agree with that. I didn't have the kind of bond with TJ that I would like.
Sustained.
Is it true that once you and Tanya got the divorce, you didn't care that she would have custody of TJ?
That's not true at all.
Is it true that after your divorce, you were fired from your
At my
job?
construction, yes.
So you're saying that you allowed yourself to get fired from your job even after you fought with your son's mother about money?
I was just not good at the time. I was very immature, very upset that I wasn't able to.
Narrative.
Sustained.
And is it true that you showed up late for work enough times to get fired after your divorce, even when you had a child to take care of?
Asked and answered.
Sustained.
Scott, will you please read this section from your affidavit?
I knew that my main problem was immaturity.
Thank you. Please tell me what you and TJ would do together on the rare occasion that you would spend time with him.
TJ, well, we would hang out at the house, watch football games, things like that. TJ definitely liked going to the shooting range, doing things like that.
Okay. Is it true that when you were in the Army, you were just an engineer?
Yes.
So you told TJ fake stories about combat.
Those weren't my stories. Those were from other veterans. I said that in the affidavit.
And he just happened to obsess over guns?
Yes. I feel as though the neighborhood that TJ was in, the kids at school, TJ had said himself that it was very prevalent in school.
You're safe.
Sustained.
And could you ever imagine that your stories were feeding into TJ's gun obsession?
Speculation.
Sustained.
And you told him these stories in hopes he would like you after you ran with him?
Speculation.
Sustained.
How old was TJ when you started to take interest in him?
What do you mean by that? Like, what do you mean take interest in him?
Start spending time with him again?
When I got back to Shepherdville, what you're saying? I don't really know what you mean by that.
How old was he when you started to want to see him again?
I always wanted to see TJ. I don't really know what you're talking about.
After you left and you wanted to start spending time with him again?
Left what? What are you talking about?
Left the army.
Asked
and-
and
Okay, TJ was 7 years old. That's all I was asking. Didn't know what you meant.
Have you ever thought that maybe TJ started to like guns because he wanted to be like his father?
No, not at all. That was TJ.
And is it true that you caught TJ trying to buy guns from a magazine?
Yeah. Well, TJ was asking if TJ could buy guns.
And what was your response when you discovered this?
Told TJ that was nothing that TJ didn't even worry about.
Please read this section from your affidavit.
Let me see, please.
TJ asked, "Hey Dad, can you buy guns through the mail?" I said, "I don't think so, but you shouldn't be thinking about that anyway."
So you told TJ that you couldn't buy guns through the mail and that he shouldn't stop thinking about guns, and that was it?
That
I'm
should
sorry, can you repeat that?
So you told TJ that you couldn't buy guns through the mail and that he shouldn't stop thinking about guns, and that was it?
That TJ shouldn't stop thinking about guns. I don't believe that at all.
Okay. Who was Mr. Botner to you?
Who's Mr. Bonner?
Yes.
Mr. Bonner was the man who TJ went home with Tanya oftentimes and had sessions with.
And how did you feel about Mr. Botner?
I had no problem with the sessions, but I felt as though he was very rude toward me. Felt like his personal life went into his work life.
And you didn't like him even though he was trying to help TJ when you were too immature to do it yourself?
I never said I didn't like him. I didn't like his tactics towards me. That was all.
Objection narrative.
Sustained.
What did you tell Mr. Botner after his second call to you?
I told him that he didn't need to contact me anymore.
Please read the section from your affidavit.
Bodmer called me twice, and I told him quite clearly not to tell me how to raise my child.
So if Mr. Botner can't tell you how to raise TJ, why do you think you should have the right to tell Tanya how to raise TJ?
Are you
When did I
believe it?
tell Tanya?
Sustained.
Tanya had full custody of TJ, correct?
Yes.
Best evidence.
Overruled.
So if Mr. Botner can't, oh, did I already do that? Yes. Sorry, guys.
I had essentially given up control of TJ to Tanya, since she was the person actually raising him.
Why couldn't Mr. Botner tell you how to raise your kid if you claim that he was Tanya's to raise?
Argumentative.
Sustained.
Do you feel a responsibility towards your kids?
Yes, absolutely.
Not just the second two?
Absolutely.
objection?
From the moment Jesse was born, I felt a strong responsibility to be a good father.
You only felt a responsibility to be a father after your second child was born?
Yes, I would absolutely say so. I take full responsibility in that. I wasn't responsible for my own kids.
Sustained.
Where were you when Jesse was shot?
I was at my friend Lucy's house just up the road.
And what were you doing there?
I went to go grab a tool and then we were watching the football game for a while.
You weren't drinking?
Yes, we were drinking, sorry.
You thought it was okay to leave a 5 and 2-year-old with a
Are you
13-year-old?
Sustained.
Even when TJ has never watched a child in his life, you felt he was responsible enough to watch a 5 and a 2-year-old?
Yes, and I was just up the road, I felt as though it was a safe situation.
Especially when he's already had trouble with the cops?
Are you negative?
Sustained.
Did you happen to tell your kids how long you would be gone?
I told them I'd be gone a short time. I didn't really speculate how long.
Your Honor, we would like to submit the 911 call into evidence.
The operator stated, "When is your father coming back, TJ?" TJ said, "I don't know, he didn't tell me." Operator said, how long has he been gone, TJ? And TJ said, "I don't know, a long time, all afternoon."
According to what you just read, you never told TJ how long you would be gone or leaving him with 2 younger siblings. How much of the game did you watch while you were there?
TJ had just seen his half brother shot, and I think TJ was definitely shot.
Sustained.
I asked how much of the game did you watch? I didn't ask a question before.
Till half, or the second half. What's the second half?
And you are aware that a halftime in a football game is 15 plus minutes.
Yes,
And you are aware that a half is at least 30 minutes.
yes,
So you left your kids alone for at least 40 minutes, which would have been longer if TJ didn't run you screaming.
yes.
And after you saw Jesse wounded, what did you do?
My friend Lewis, he's an EMT, so he took over. And I tried to just make sure TJ was okay.
And when the ambulance arrived, you got in and escorted Jesse to the hospital, correct?
Yes, and I called Tom, yeah.
What did you do with TJ and Kim?
They went with Lewis for the short time, and then Tommy came and helped pick them up.
I don't believe that it says that in your affidavit. Just left them there?
Argumentative.
Sustained.
That'll be it.
We'll do a brief 5-minute recess.
Hey, did you guys notice? Yeah, I was waltzing through that. Like a cakewalk. There wasn't a lot of narration with it. So. Yeah, so 8 is over and 7.
There's a problem. There's a problem, and I don't know how to do it. Casey. Would you be mad if
Taylor, as Terry, are you a boy or a girl? I said Taylor.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to return from our brief recess. In the interest of expediting the case, it's customary when you submit evidence to show the opposing counsel. However, we've only gone through 2 witnesses, and we have 4 more yet to do with 2 class periods, so they will directly bring their evidence to the case.
Plaintiff, may call your next witness.
the plaintiff calls Dr. Sidney to the stand. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Dr. Sandy Turner.
Where are you currently employed?
I'm employed at New Columbia University as a professor in emergency medicine and public health.
What academic credentials have you received?
I have a bachelor's in biochemistry. I also have an MD and a PhD in public health.
What career experience do you have?
I did a residency in emergency medicine. I was also a staff emergency room physician for 4 years, and I'm now a professor of emergency medicine and public health for the past 6.
What area of study do you focus on?
My main focus is on domestic violence, but for the past 2 years, I've studied the relationship between gun ownership and accidental shootings in the home.
What experience do you have specifically in the area of gun safety?
I was a special consultant on the New Columbia Senate Committee on drafting the New Columbia Criminal Code, Section 105, criminal storage of a firearm. I also prepared materials for how you need to get a license in New Columbia.
What is an example of the prepared materials for this gun safety course required?
An important piece of sheet is the safe storage of a handgun.
Please explain if this is a law, the New Columbia Code is a law that pertains to criminal court, why is this case in civil court?
While this could have been taken to criminal court, Scott Walker generously did not. He felt financial compensation was more necessary for Jesse Walker's injuries.
That was not in her affidavit.
I don't think it has to be.
Where is she getting it?
It wasn't established.
Sustained.
Have you been involved in other cases of gun violence similar to this one?
Yes, I've testified at 24 trials in the past 2 years. I've testified in both plaintiffs and defendants.
How much are you being paid to testify today?
I'm being paid my regular rate of $200 per hour.
When did you first meet Scott Walker?
I met Scott Walker a few days ago with his lawyers. I also talked on the phone with TJ for 15 minutes.
Have you met Tanya Burstall or Carl Newhouse?
I have not met either of them, but I have gained all of the necessary information needed.
There it is. Sustained.
If you have never met Tanya or Carl, how do you know that you've gathered all of the necessary information?
While I've never met them, from listening to multiple of the testimonies, it is clear that TJ had gotten the gun on multiple occasions.
Sustained.
Can you please speak up? I can't really hear your question.
I can barely hear the answers to it.
Okay.
Figure them out.
I'd like to submit safe storage of handguns as evidence. Please read the owning a handgun section.
Making the decision to own a handgun assumes that you've prepared to undertake full-time responsibility for your weapon's safety and security. You must protect yourself and your family members against misuse of the handgun by anyone who is either incompetent or unqualified to handle the weapon. In particular, you must secure your handgun from theft and misuse by children. If you have a handgun, you should understand that it is a lethal weapon capable of inflicting death and disabling injury on living targets. If not treated with utmost caution and safety, it can accidentally discharge and result in tragic consequences for you and your family. In the material that follows, we describe step-by-step precautions that you must take to protect yourself and your family members from being accidentally killed or maimed by your handgun. It is your responsibility to put these safety rules into practice.
Thank you. What takeaway should parents get from this section of the handbook?
They need to understand that they own a lethal weapon and they need to follow all of the stated safety procedures. especially if they have a child in their home.
Please read the special note for parents section.
Do not trust anyone else, even your own spouse or significant other, to ensure that the measures described below are followed. All adults in the home must know exactly where a handgun is stored and what measures have been taken to childproof the handgun. They must also ensure that these precautions are continually taken. If you're not willing to take on these responsibilities, you should not keep a handgun in your home or allow anyone else to keep one in there.
Thank you. In your own words, explain what this paragraph means for parents.
It means that they need to follow all of the safety procedures as they may own a gun with a child in the home, and that child could get access to that gun.
Your Honor, I'd like to submit Sandy Turner's affidavit as evidence. Please read the highlighted section.
Firearms kill more teenagers than cancer, heart disease, AIDS, and other biological diseases combined. In addition to deliberate shootings, the United States has witnessed an increase in the number of accidental shootings occurring among family members. With all the media publicity focused on violence resulting from gang or drug wars, not enough attention is focused on the accidental shootings which occur every day. Every day in America, a child is accidentally killed by a firearm and 10 others are injured.
Thank you. What do you think is the most effective way to control these accidental shootings you mentioned in your
Objection,
affidavit?
leading.
Sustained.
What should parents do if they choose to keep a gun in their home?
They should keep it locked up in a secure area or with a trigger lock.
What consequences could parents face when they have not safely stored their handguns?
They could be held criminally liable if they do not safely store their handguns and a child gets a hold of it.
What was the new Colombia statute you mentioned earlier designed
Sorry,
for?
can you repeat that one?
What was the new Colombia statute you mentioned previously designed for?
It was designed for parents to lock and store their guns in a secure place.
Have laws similar to this one in other states been proven to be effective?
While no formal studies have been done, I think it would be very effective.
narrative.
Sustained.
Do you think gun owning parents understand the need for liability responsibilities?
What did you say?
Sustained.
Leading.
Leading.
In your experience, do parents often believe that laws like this are necessary?
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
What should parents assume when
Objection, hearsay.
No,
What should parents assume?
that's not asking her to speak on
It's
another
kind of just like a
person.
general
That's
statement.
speculation.
Sustained.
It's not speculating to ask what a parent should do to
Speculating to ask
safely
what parents
keep
would
their
assume.
child safe.
It's not speculating something involving the
This is a
actual
witness.
You're a
child.
testifying witness.
She's not speaking.
These are just like general statements, like she's a professional, I'm asking her professional opinions.
I please ask for the entire question to be read out first, so you can make that call.
Are you a witness?
Argumentative. You didn't let us finish ours.
Proceed.
Okay, yeah, just get on. Just get on.
Ask the question, please.
In your professional opinion, what should parents assume about their children when keeping a gun in their homes?
They should assume that their child will not follow their instructions and will try to get a hold of the handgun.
What is often the result of children getting a hold of their parents' handguns?
The likely result is a death or injury.
Is there anything else parents should be aware of when keeping a gun in their homes?
Parents should be aware of any previous violent incidents.
Objection leading. Overruled.
What are some examples of the violent behavior or incidents parents should be cautious of?
It can be any incidents involving a weapon, gang violence, anything sort of that. in that range.
What should parents do if they know their child has these violent tendencies?
They should take all precautions into avoiding their child getting a hold of the handgun or firearm.
In your professional opinion, do you think Scott Walker needed to take extra precautions as far as gun safety in his home?
If there was a gun in Scott Walker's home, there would be no need to take those precautions.
Objection conclusion.
Sustained.
Why should parents assume that their children will be fascinated by a gun in their home?
Objection asked and answered.
Sustained.
Where in the country is it becoming more common for teenagers to own guns?
It's becoming common pretty much everywhere, such as rural areas, cities, suburbs.
Objection speculation. Overruled.
What? It's fine.
Past strategy.
I can go on. Yeah. For the most
Based on your research, what is a common reason teenagers feel they need to own guns?
Teenagers understand how violent other teenagers are, therefore they adapt to their surroundings, basically. They understand that it can be used for protection, but also revenge, status, or glamour.
What behaviors from their peers do they feel they need to be protected from? What behaviors from their peers do they feel they need to be protected from?
Overruled.
Can you repeat your question one more time?
What behaviors from their peers do teenagers feel they need to be protected from?
They feel they need to be protected from any sort of violent tendencies and behaviors. TJ lives in a dangerous neighborhood, therefore real or imagined slights, such as, someone stuffing his fingers
Overruled.
or looking at someone the wrong way.
Statistically, how common is it for a teenager to own a gun?
In 1990, 1 out of 25 high school students owned a gun.
Describe how peer pressure could be a factor into why teenagers are carrying guns these days.
Teenagers are carrying guns everywhere, such as parties, school, on the subway. Their mindset is, if everyone else has one, I need one too.
In your professional opinion, could Scott Walker's way of trying to bond with TJ through guns have had a negative impact on him?
Objection conclusion.
Sustained.
Did TJ's parents have any type of impact on TJ's interest in guns? Or was
Objection conclusion.
Sustained.
In your professional opinion, what are your thoughts on how Tanya Brewster acted in this situation?
In my professional opinion, Tanya Brewster acted irresponsibly, and she should have put more into her supervision of TJ.
Should Tanya Brewster have allowed a gun to be kept in her home?
Objection, conclusion.
Overruled.
Tanya knew of TJ's violent behaviors, therefore she should not have let a gun be owned in her house.
In your experience, how much money is spent annually on hospital costs for victims with firearm-related injuries?
Annually, $1 billion is spent every year.
Have you examined the medical records of Jesse Walker?
I have, in fact, examined the medical records of Jesse Walker.
What can you determine from examining these medical records?
Jesse will need a lifetime of care, specialized care specifically, and he will need, specialized equipment, medicine, outpatient nursing.
Best evidence? This is on the medical record? Stay.
I would like to argue that that is in Sandy Turner's affidavit, like word for word.
That's true.
It's in there.
It says right here, my review of Jesse's medical records indicates he will need a lifetime of intensive medical treatment, including physical therapy, medication, specialized equipment, and outpatient nursing care. Page 22, Sandy Turner's affidavit.
So we have a read that.
Okay, moving on. Based on your experience with cases like this one, what do you estimate Jesse's future medical costs will be?
Jesse will require $10,000 per year, and over his remaining lifespan of 65 years, he will need approximately $650,000 worth of care. But this is only an estimate.
When the judge is determining the amount of money that should be necessary in this case, should he base his decision on your opinion or the hospital records?
He should base it off of the hospital records, as my opinion is only coming from previous cases. The hospital will know what Jesse specifically needs.
I have no further questions.
Defense, I'm sorry, defense.
Yeah, please.
Good afternoon. Can you please state your name for the record?
My name is Dr. Cindy Turner.
And what is your profession?
I am a professor in emergency medicine and public health
And how long have you been doing that?
for 6 years.
All right. How long have you known Mr. Walker and his family?
I've only known Scott Walker for a few days.
Okay, and is he paying you for your testimony?
Yes, he is.
And how much is he paying you?
$200 per hour.
Oh, so he can pay you, but not his own child support?
Argumentative.
Sustained.
How many times have you testified in court?
I've testified 24 times in the past 2 years.
And how many times have you testified for the prosecution?
For the plaintiffs, I've testified 18 times.
Okay, and then how many for defense?
Irrelevant.
6 times.
Sustained.
Would you consider yourself impartial?
I would. I do not choose who walks through my door and ask for my facts and research. I simply provide them.
Did you examine the medical records of Jesse Walker?
I have.
And what did you find from your examinations?
Sustained.
What medical treatment will Jesse need from the examination of
Best
the medical
evidence.
records?
Sustained.
Can you please read
I'd like to enter the medical records of Jesse Walker. Yeah.
His current medical expenses, emergency and intensive care services, $9,000. Surgical procedures, $14,400. Inpatient hospital services, $11,000. Prescription medication, $350. Specialized equipment, $3,500. Physician office visits, $1,750. Physical therapy, $2,000. In total, this will be $42,000. His estimated future expenses, the following are mere estimates based on the best information currently available. These estimates have been prepared at the request of the billing recipient, Scott Walker. Estimated annual medical expenses, $15,000 per. He has an estimated remaining life expectancy of 65 years. So in total, it will be costing around $975,000.
Thank you. And now I'd like to enter Dr. Turner's affidavit. Yeah.
Projected over Jesse's estimated remaining lifespan of 65 years, this amounts to approximately $650,000.
Thank you. So what you just read, are these your professional approximations?
The approximation I give in my affidavit is my professional opinion.
So, Your Honor, there seems to be a significant discrepancy between the medical record prepared at Scott Walker's request and this medical professional's estimations. The plaintiff is asking for a significant amount of money, and a gap of over $300,000 is no small difference.
Can he just
So
talk like
please
that?
consider
He needs to
this
ask
in
a
your
question,
judgment.
doesn't he?
Excuse me?
He needs to ask a question, doesn't he?
It would be nice.
He's getting to the.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's getting there. He's getting there. Let him finish.
So it's a known fact that people commit medical fraud. Is it not alarming to you when you see a $300,000 discrepancy between your professional medical estimation and Scott's prepared
Is he asking you
estimation?
with this?
Yes, I am.
For medical fraud?
Can you repeat the question? I swear to
Medical fraud?
All right, it is a known fact that people commit medical fraud. Is it not alarming to you when you see a $300,000 discrepancy between your professional estimations and the medical records that were prepared at Scott Walker's request?
It is not. Again, I only give the estimate. The hospital understands what Jesse needs specifically. I am only going based off of previous cases I've seen.
So would this discrepancy then discredit your findings as if the hospital is the more reasonable?
It does not. I'm going based off of previous cases. So therefore, I can only give a global estimate, basically.
So would this, if it does not discredit your findings, would it discredit the findings of the hospital prepared by Scott Walker?
Ask and answer?
Sustained. Have you ever met Ms. Brewster or Mr. Newhouse?
I have not.
I'd like you to read number 3 on your affidavit.
Based on all of the facts of this case, I believe that Tanya Brewster acted irresponsibly. Ms. Brewster should have been more careful in her supervision of TJ.
And how can you say that regarding, you've never met Tanya or Mr. Newhouse?
It's been made clear that TJ has gotten a hold of the gun on multiple occasions and has even brought it to the school. This means This means that Tanya never followed the safety procedures which led to TJ getting the gun.
Conclusion.
Overruled.
Those are the highlighted sections of that.
Parents should also be aware of whether their children may be prone to violent behavior. When a child has been involved in violent behavior, the parents should be on red alert. Violent behaviors include any fights, gang involvement, incidents involving weapons of any kind, or any criminal activity. If a child has been involved in these types of incidents, parents are noticed that their children has violent tendencies. If this is true, the parent should take precautions to reduce the possibility of violent behaviors by that child in the future.
Are you aware that Tanya enrolled TJ into a diversion program after he was involved in violent activities?
I was not.
Okay. Were you also aware that Scott refused to be involved in these diversion programs after being asked on multiple occasions?
Irrelevance.
Sustained.
I have another section of your application for you to read.
One out of 25 high school students in the United States carried a gun in 1990. Teenagers obtain guns for a number of reasons. Often they do so for protection or revenge, but they also carry guns for status and glamour.
So, is it typical, especially in this area, for teenagers to obtain firearms?
Yes,
So it wouldn't be unreasonable for TJ to obtain a gun regardless of Carl owning one?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
So it wouldn't be unreasonable for TJ to obtain a gun regardless of Carl owning one?
Speculation.
Sustained.
No further questions.
Thank you.
Defense may call your first witness.
Come on, Carl.
I'd like to call, Carl Davis to the stand. Please state your name for the record.
Carl Lewis.
When did you meet Tanya Brewster?
About 2 years ago.
Do you live with Tanya?
Yes.
And, when did you move into her house?
I'm sorry,
In
can you
August of
speak up?
1993.
Do you want me to restate the question? Okay. When did you move into her house?
In August of 1993.
What was Scott like based on your experiences with him?
He was too busy for his own interests. Never really.
So in what ways was Scott too busy?
Repeat that.
In what ways was Scott too busy?
He was more busy with his other wife and 2 other children.
So Scott focused more on his other kids than TJ?
Hearsay.
Sustained.
Were there other ways Scott didn't provide for TJ?
Hearsay.
Sustained.
All right.
It's asking, hearsay is about hearing, not seeing.
Yeah, these are all counts in Carl's affidavit.
It's Carl's opinion, just like
Yeah,
it
she's not
was
stating what she
Dr.
heard on
Sandy
behalf of
Turner's.
someone else.
Sustained. Would you, Counselor, then phrase it saying, what have you seen?
All right, fair enough. There goes that. I'd like to submit Carl's affidavit.
TJ is a great kid, smart, funny, and outgoing, but TJ is a teenager and can be easily influenced by friends and TV or other movie images. TJ can also be influenced by adult authority figures like her or his father. I think TJ had a tough childhood, since Scott was never really around. Scott was always too busy for his own interests, and now is too busy with his second wife and other kids.
So, what was TJ like through all this?
He's generally a good kid, but can be easily influenced by other adults.
That's been helpful.
On the other hand, I know TJ loves Scott very much and would like to have a closer relationship with him. TJ has also told me about 6 to 8 months before the shooting incident, it appeared that Scott was trying a little too hard to get close to TJ and make TJ feel like a part of it too.
So, how would you describe TJ's personal relationship with Scott?
Hearsay.
Can I rephrase? Can I say, based on what you saw, what was TJ's relationship with Scott?
Scott was never really around TJ. They weren't really that close.
How was TJ influenced by this?
He tended to get in trouble just to get Scott's attention.
What's Tanya like?
She's a hardworking woman who owns her own business.
How is she as a mother?
She's a loving mother who would do anything for TJ.
Do you own any firearms?
Yes, I have a pistol.
Why do you own a firearm?
Because I was robbed at gunpoint in my previous apartment. I have a license for the gun, and I have taken a gun safety course in order to receive the license.
In order to get this gun, what did you have to do?
I had to take a gun safety course in order to receive it.
Did you bring this firearm into Tanya's house when you moved in?
Yes, I brought it to protect me, TJ, and Tanya, knowing that we lived in a dangerous neighborhood.
What were Tanya's initial reactions to you bringing the gun?
She was not really happy about it, didn't really want it in the house.
Why did she not want to know?
Because of TJ's previous behaviors.
When you brought the firearm in, did you and Tanya discuss firearm safety?
Yes, I gave her a safety of storage handguns.
And in the end, who decided where the gun would be stored?
Myself, I convinced Tanya to trust me to keep the gun.
So with this, you taking responsibility of what did you do to prevent somebody like TJ from getting the gun?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
With him taking responsibility with the TJ, what did he do to prevent somebody like TJ from getting the gun?
I kept it in my toolbox in the garage, typically locked, and I told them that it was off limits. It's ridiculous that she's even being sued for this. She trusted me.
Sustained.
That's all I got.
Folks, sit down, take a seat. Take a seat and just relax. Just
Can you please say your name?
Carl Newhouse.
And what's your current occupation?
I am a car salesman.
Where do you live?
4952 Oak Lane Road. Tree Lane.
Okay. Do you own this house?
No, Tanya does.
And is this the house where you store your gun?
Yes.
What is your relationship to Tanya?
I am partner.
Could you repeat that?
I'm her partner.
How long have you known her?
About 2 years.
How long have you known her?
About 2 years.
And how long were you two dating before you moved in?
About a couple months.
Okay. And can you please tell me about your relationship with TJ?
I feel like we have a mutual understanding. Didn't really mind me at all.
And before you moved in, did you or Tanya discuss it with TJ?
No.
Why not?
Because I felt like TJ was okay with it. He seemed okay with it.
But did you ask him?
No.
So you just moved in?
Yes.
What type of gun do you own?
Can you repeat that?
What type of gun do you own?
About a 9mm semi-automatic pistol.
Can you tell me about some of the features?
Objection irrelevant.
Overruled.
No, I cannot.
So it's safe to assume that you don't know your gun too well?
Well, I took a safety course to, I obviously know.
But about the gun that you specifically have, what do you know about it?
Dylan, can you please speak up?
Sure.
Gabby, can you just
Yeah.
Do you have any background guns?
No.
Okay. And before you brought the gun into the house, did you discuss it with Tanya?
Yes.
What did she say to that?
She wasn't really happy about it. She didn't want to.
Objection hearsay.
Overruled. Overruled.
Okay. Can you please read this section from your affidavit?
Tanya finally agreed to let me keep the gun. I guess she trusted me.
What do you mean by I guess she trusted me?
I convinced her to trust me to keep the gun in the house.
But she didn't fully have your trust?
I convinced her, so she trusted me.
How did you convince her?
I gave her a safety storage of the handguns book for her to read.
Did you know about TJ's history surrounding guns?
Yes.
Why did you think it was a good idea to bring a gun into the house?
Knowing that we lived in like a dangerous neighborhood, just to protect TJ, and Tommy.
And you said you did take the safety course?
Yes.
Please tell me about some of the rules that you learned at the safety course.
To keep it safely stored in the house.
Did you take any other precautions to keep the house a safe environment?
Yes.
What did you do?
I stored my gun away.
Okay, can you please read this section from Safe Storage of Handguns?
All adults in the house must know exactly where the handgun is stored and what measures have to be taken for childhood.
Did you and Tanya read this information sheet?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I really can't hear.
Did you and Tanya read this information sheet?
Yes.
And where did you store the gun?
In my toolbox, that was the lock. That was typically locked.
You said you use this gun for protection, correct?
Yes.
If that's the case, why do you store it in the garage and not close to your person?
Because I thought it was a safer place.
Did Tanya know where the gun was stored?
No.
Did she ever make an effort to know where the gun was stored?
No, because I convinced her to trust me to keep it safe.
So, from the section that I just had you read, it said that all adults must know where it is stored. So, you said she doesn't know where it is, meaning she didn't really follow that?
Yeah, because she trusted you to keep it safe.
She trusted you with very little experience over the sheet that everyone needs to read to own a gun?
Objection, argumentative.
I'll take it. Okay. And was the gun locked when you last saw it?
Typically, it's locked.
Can you please read this for me?
It was already asked and answered.
Ask and answer.
Okay, moving on. Can you please read this section from your affidavit?
Sometimes when I'm working on a long-term project, I forget to lock it. Forgetting that I had put the gun off. I remember the week before the accident, I was rebuilding a transmission. That whole week, I was fairly shy to lock the key.
How long does it take to rebuild a transmission?
A few weeks.
Okay, so given that long time period, can we assume that the gun was not locked?
Objection, speculation.
Sustained.
Can you be 100% sure that the gun was locked at the time of the incident? How often did you check up on the gun to make sure it's still where you left it?
Can you please repeat that?
Yeah.
How often did you check up on the gun to make sure it was still where you left it?
I typically leave it unlocked when I'm working on long-term projects. So,
I asked how often you checked up on it, like looked at it to see that it was still there.
whenever I'm working, or whenever I'm in the garage or basement.
And did TJ know where the gun was, to your knowledge?
Yes.
Did you ever think to move it?
No, because I told him not to touch it.
And you trusted his word?
Yes.
Objection irrelevant.
Overruled.
Were you aware that TJ was taking your gun and even took it to school?
No.
So he had access to the gun and took it multiple times without you or Tanya noticing?
Yes.
Was there a trigger lock on the gun?
Yes. Repeat the question?
Was there a trigger lock on the gun?
No.
Was the gun stored unloaded?
No.
Was the magazine disassembled? Is that a statement or a question?
Can you repeat it?
Was the magazine disassembled? Was it
Objection
out of the
irrelevant.
gun?
That's not irrelevant.
Overruled.
How do you disassemble a magazine? What does that have to do?
No.
It's a part of the
If you would
gun.
read the
If you just. Thank you. Okay. Did you take any safety precautions to secure the gun when you were gone for long periods of time?
Can you speak up?
Did you take additional safety precautions to secure the gun when you were gone for long periods of time?
No.
All of this is stated in safe storage of handguns. Can you please read this section?
It is your responsibility to put the safety rules in practice.
Given your answers to the previous questions, did you put those safety rules into practice?
Ask and answer.
Overruled.
Can you repeat that?
Given your answers to the previous questions, did you put those safety rules into practice? Did Tanya? Prosecution risk.
Defense may call your next witness.
I'd like to call Tanya Brewster to the stand. Please state your name for the record.
Tanya Brewster.
What do you do for work?
I own and manage a temporary employment agency,
How long have you run this business?
3 years.
Please describe the neighborhood in which you live.
It was good when we first moved in, but as things started form, New Colombia, they're finding way too close to home.
Have you ever been robbed or put in harm's way in your home?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Have you ever been robbed or put in harm's way in your home?
Irrelevance.
Sustained.
How is that relevant?
Tanya doesn't have the gun. It's Carl's gun.
Have you ever been put in harm's way in your home?
But that's not relevant to this case. What does that have to do with? Jesse was put in harm's way when Scott wasn't there.
Yeah.
Objection sustained.
Reword the question. Yeah. Try to. Or just skip.
You're doing fine.
How long have you known Scott Walker?
Scott and I met sophomore year in high school.
And how would you describe your relationship?
We were in love.
Please describe your high school relationship.
It was good for the most part, but I got pregnant my senior year.
How did the two of you handle that?
We were overwhelmed at first and was scared, but I knew how to step up and take care of the baby.
How did your parents respond to the situation?
They suggested that we should get married because we're having a baby, and we agreed because we were in love.
How did you feel about raising TJ?
I was very overwhelmed at first, but I wanted to take that responsibility and be there for him, so I took it.
How was your marriage after TJ was born?
Things were getting worse. Scott was never interested anymore, he was never home. He just wasn't the greatest father figure.
Did Scott spend a lot of time with TJ?
No, he never saw him, he was at bars or he met with friends.
Before you had your own business, what did you do for work?
When TJ was 2, I was working part-time at an employment agency.
And why did you feel you needed this job?
I knew it was a meaningful position and it was responsible, and I wanted to get TJ a good life with their money.
How was your relationship with Scott during this time?
It wasn't that good, he was never there, he wasn't the greatest father figure. He just spent too much time going to like the army.
Describe Scott's relationship with money during the years of your marriage.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the
Sorry, say that again?
Describe Scott's relationship with money during the years of your marriage.
I don't know what it was, but it was responsible, he loved spending money.
How did you react when Scott asked for a divorce?
I agreed.
Objection, Scott did not ask for the divorce. What?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, okay. What's the relevance to your question?
There is conditions into this divorce.
It says right here that Scott asked for a divorce.
I just said it.
Okay, moving
Scott
on.
had asked him for a divorce. I agree.
Okay.
Did you have any conditions about the divorce?
My conditions were to see, take custody of TJ,
And why did you want custody of TJ?
because I didn't think he was the greatest father figure and he was just too immature.
Were there any divorce agreements you and Scott agreed to follow?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Were there any divorce agreements you and Scott agreed to follow?
That he would pay $250 of child support and I get full custody of TJ.
Did Scott follow through with this agreement?
You know, he went to the army and rarely see TJ and never really paid child support.
I'd like to submit evidence from Tiny's affidavit.
When he returned from the army, he only saw TJ about every 4 or 5 weeks. He even missed a few of TJ's birthdays and 1 or 2 Christmases. Scott also started missing child support payments. While he was in the army, the payments came every month. But when he got out, he began missing more and more payments. I did not pursue these payments in court because by that time my business was becoming more successful and I did not have the time or energy to go to court and chase Scott.
Why didn't you chase down these payments from Scott?
So at the time, I quit my other job and got my own business to the point where it could be very successful for TJ.
How did you make time towards TJ while working so many hours?
I didn't see him as much as I'd like, but every opportunity I got, I was always taking him to counseling, talking to him, just being there for him while Scott didn't even have the effort to do any of that.
How did you handle yourself after the divorce?
I didn't date anyone for a while.
Objection made.
Sustained.
Did you get into any other relationships after the divorce?
Yes, with Carl Newhouse, and we dated for 2 years, and I asked him to move in August, in a year and a half.
How was your and Carl's relationship?
It was really good, but he insisted on bringing a gun into the house.
How did you react to this?
I immediately told him no, that guns just bring trouble wherever they go.
Why did he insist on bringing in a gun?
Because of where we lived, the neighborhood wasn't the greatest, and he wanted it solely for protection. I knew he would never put me, TJ, in harm's way.
Did you end up allowing him to bring the gun in?
Yes, but only after seeing his documents of safety handgun.
Why did you feel the need to keep TJ in this neighborhood?
Because at the time my business grew so successful, I wasn't going to go up and leave everything that I worked for, and I was employing people in the neighborhood.
Has TJ ever been involved in any type of conflict?
There was this one time in the neighborhood with some friends, weapons were involved, and he was sent down to the police station.
And how did you react to this?
I immediately went to the police station, and the juvenile system said that he would need to be put into, next time, put into a diversion program, but I immediately told him I wanted him in the program now.
Why did you feel putting TJ in the program was necessary?
Because it allowed him to speak his mind, and it was good for, it's counseling, so it was good for him. And Scott was supposed to come to this, but he never came.
Did the counseling benefit TJ?
Yes, he was telling me things I've never heard about from school.
Hearsay.
From school, and he was speaking his mind. Let me know my child more, but Scott still didn't go.
Sustained.
Did TJ ever show any interest in guns?
Yes, I've always seen magazines with guns circled with prices, which I think is Scott's influence.
I'd like to submit evidence from Tiny's affidavit.
The last straw came when Scott bought TJ a BB gun. Scott acted like it was a toy, but I knew that someone could get seriously hurt with one of those things. I put my foot down and said that under no circumstances would I allow TJ to own a gun of any kind. Scott agreed to return the BB gun, but who knows what he said to TJ about the whole thing. When TJ gets these kind of messages from Scott, it is very hard for me to keep him on the straight and narrow.
Were there any other instances where TJ showed any interest in guns?
Like I said in the magazine,
When was the most recent time TJ visited Scott?
it was a Saturday and it ended up with Scott calling me saying that TJ was in the station.
It was Saturday.
And what happened during this time?
Apparently TJ shot Jesse, one of Scott's kids, at Scott's house, and he was not there.
Where were you at this time?
I was at my house as it was not my turn to watch TJ, it was Scott's supervision.
What was your reaction after this incident?
Repeat that?
What was your reaction after this incident?
I was freaked out, I didn't know what happened, I was mad at Scott for not watching him. Yeah.
So where was Scott during the time of the shooting?
He was down the street at his friend's house watching the football game and drinking beer.
Who do you feel is responsible for your son being shot?
Objection concluded. Sustained.
No further questions.
Plaintiff. Witness.
Mr. Shire, did you go finish? You said you quick about it. I know. Half an hour. Last witness.
All right, please state your name for the record.
Tanya Brewster,
Please speak outside.
Where do you currently live?
4952 Oak Tree Lane, Shepherdsville, New Columbia.
Are you the primary owner of this house?
Yes,
So it's your property, Mr. Newhouse has no legal rights.
yes.
When did you first meet the plaintiff, Scott Walker?
Can you slow down, please?
Yes, sorry. When did you first meet the plaintiff, Scott Walker?
Well, that's the third question.
Overruled. Go ahead.
Sophomore year in high school,
And when did you two get married?
1983.
And that was your senior year?
Yes.
What was the reason you got married?
He got me pregnant, we're having a baby, so my parents thought it was right for us to get married.
So the main reason you got married was because you had a baby on the way.
Yes, and we're in love.
How long did your marriage last with Scott Walker?
About 4 years.
Tell me about your custody agreement over TJ after your divorce.
We agreed that I would get full custody of TJ, and I could pay child support $250 per month.
Who asked for Scott Walker to not have custody over TJ?
Me,
Would you say that when the plaintiff agreed to your request, you took on all parental responsibility of TJ?
yes.
Why did you ask Mr. Walker to give up his custody?
I didn't think he was the greatest father figure at the time, he was responsible,
So you didn't think that he was fit to raise your child?
not at all. But the same time, he's still his dad, and that's the reason why I want him to see him as often as he can.
You're now in a relationship with Carl Newhouse, right?
Right.
And he is the registered owner of the Beretta 9mm. I'm sorry. He's the registered owner of the Beretta 9mm pistol that paralyzed Jesse Walker.
Yeah,
And where was this pistol kept in your house?
in a toolbox, from what I've heard.
Were you aware of this before the accident that paralyzed Jesse Walker?
No.
When you brought the gun into the house, who was responsible with keeping TJ away from the gun?
I think it was a both parent thing. I told many times to TJ that he should never go near guns. I watched Lynn watch documentaries and everything.
As established in the course of this trial, your son has obviously had some trouble with the law and his behavior. Can you elaborate on what your son actually did?
On the night of the shooting, or?
No, when he had trouble with the law. I think you said he got in fights and stuff. Can you elaborate?
There was this one incident where he got into a fight in his neighborhood.
Okay, are there other incidents, or is that the only one?
There was one in school.
She already said that it was only one.
Okay, fair. How long have you been aware of TJ's behavior?
For quite a while.
Can you give me a general timeline, something a little more specific than that?
Ever since Scott came back from the army.
You say that ever since he came back from the army, you've been experiencing bad behavior from TJ?
Yes, but that's the reason I got him counseling, so he could open up about the bad experience.
Okay. Scott Walker got out of the army when TJ was 6, right? 6 or 7?
I believe so.
And you've been
He showed more interest when he came back from the army, is what I'm saying. Like, there's probably some interest in before.
Sustained.
You participated in counseling with Terry Botner from a juvenile diversion program, am I right?
I asked an answer. She already said she would make a counseling with him.
Sustained.
Please read the section labeled number 4.
In the sessions, we talk about crime situation in their neighborhood and how to avoid it. TJ says a lot of things in the sessions that he would never tell me if just the two of us were talking. For instance, he told us that some students sneak guns into school. From these sessions, I've learned how hard it is for teenagers to stay away from all the drugs and guns that they see or hear about every day.
Thank you. Would you say that you knew how tempting a gun would be for TJ?
I guess so, yes.
Would it be unreasonable to assume that you should have known that TJ would have...
Sustained.
So what was the reasoning for allowing your gun into the house?
Conclusion. Sustained.
That was not a conclusion. I was asking what her reasoning was for bringing the gun into her house. I'm not asking for a conclusion.
Overruled.
Repeat the question.
What was your reasoning for allowing the gun into your house?
Because of our neighborhood, I solely wanted it for protection, and TJ knew never to touch it.
Did you ask your counselor, Terry Butner, their opinion on keeping a gun in your house?
No, at the time during counseling, I never talked about the gun in my house. We talked about gun violence, but never the gun in my house.
Have you read the information sheet titled Safe Storage of Handgun?
I was reading it at the time, but TJ distracted me, and I did not want to see it, so I put it away.
Sustained.
Yes, I read it.
Okay, I have a few things for you to read from this.
Multiple questions?
She's just reading. He isn't
If
having to do
if it's more than one piece at a
You're out of the
time?
words.
What's going to happen is I'm going to ask her to read the evidence, and then I'm going to ask her a question, okay? All right, please read number 1.
Store your handgun unloaded and uncocked in a securely locked container.
Did you store the Beretta 9mm pistol in question unloaded?
I don't know, Carl did that.
Okay. Was the pistol uncocked when you stored it?
Ask and answer. You have a thing.
I have not asked that question
It's not
yet.
the gun that she stored.
Overruled. Continue.
Was the pistol uncocked when you stored it?
I do not know that either.
Did you store the pistol in a securely locked container?
Carl's reassured me that he would do that.
Read number 2, please.
Store your handgun in its ammunition in separate locations.
Did you store the ammo separately from the pistol?
The gun was not under her name.
It was in her house on her property.
It's not hers.
It's not her gun.
If that was an objection, overruled. Continue.
Can you read number 3, please?
Childproof your semi-automatic handgun by removing the magazine, disassembling the frame from the sliding magazine, or securing the trigger lock.
Did you remove the magazine, disassemble the slide and magazine, or put a trigger lock on the firearm at all?
Multiple questions.
Okay, did you remove the magazine?
No,
Did you disassemble the slide and magazine?
I would assume none of that because the gun was shot. I do not know personally.
Okay, did you put a trigger lock on the firearm?
Like I said, I don't know personally.
Okay, since you personally did none of the above, did you expect Mr. Newhouse to do it?
As I trusted him, yes.
Okay. Please read right here.
Do not trust anyone else, even your spouse or significant other, to ensure that the measures described below are followed. All adults in the house must know exactly where the handgun is stored and what measures have been taken to childproof the handgun. They must also ensure that these precautions are continually taken.
Did you read this part of the booklet?
No.
But you said you did read the booklet.
I didn't get through much of it because TJ distracted me.
Okay, so you thought it was important to read this so that you could safely keep the gun away from TJ. But as soon as you're interrupted the first time, you completely disregard.
Objection, multiple questions.
Argumentative.
I'll give you argumentative.
Do you accept that it was your responsibility to keep the gun away from TJ and not Carl's?
I think it was both of us, but ultimately he knew to put it away, and I trusted him to the point where I thought he did. It was away, but it just wasn't locked.
Also, based off of all of the evidence that you've been producing, it was both Carl and Tanya's responsibility, not just Tanya.
Okay, I agree with you. I agree. So now that you say that it was both of your responsibility, what did you personally do to keep the gun away from TJ?
I always reassured him that he should never touch a gun and put him in counseling to the point where he should be able to know not to go down there. But after Scott's influence, I think he wanted to trust Scott.
But you took no real precautions to keep the gun away from TJ, such as locking it away. You personally.
Ask and answer.
Stay.
I'm sorry, just give me 1 second. Please read there for me.
I never thought or asked about the gun again, and Carl never mentioned it. In the sessions with Terry Bonner, we talked about how a lot of people in our neighborhood had guns, but somehow I never remembered Carl's gun. In fact, I never really thought about it until I got the phone call from Scott.
Okay, so you read the booklet, Safe Storage of Handguns, and
Ask
then,
and answer.
okay, so you didn't use any of the guidelines, and then you never thought about the gun again. Yes or no?
Objection, conclusion.
No.
Overruled.
Sorry, say that again.
Okay. So you, it's established that you read the booklet. You didn't use any of its guidelines, and then you never thought about the gun again. Am I correct? It's a yes or no.
Yeah.
Do you believe you failed your duty to keep the firearm away from your son?
I think it's both me and Scott, as Scott knows that.
It's not Scott's gun.
I know, but he should know from Scott's influence that he shouldn't go near the gun.
Okay, that was not the question I asked. I asked, do you believe you failed your duty to keep the firearm away from your son?
I guess so.
Yes. Do you regret the decision to not take the proper precautions to keep the gun away from your son?
Say that again.
Meeting the witness.
It's a cross exam. Do you regret your decision to not take the proper precaution to keep the gun away from your son?
I fully believed and trusted that Carl would do it, so I don't think I didn't reach that level. It's just a miscommunication.
So Jesse Walker is paralyzed because of your miscommunication with your boyfriend.
Jesse's paralyzed because TJ did something that he shouldn't have done, and he knows he shouldn't have done it. I've talked to him, took him to many counseling, but he should never touch a gun.
Please reiterate for me.
This used to be a safe neighborhood, but over the past several years, there have been more crime and violence, mostly from street gangs.
So who do you think is responsible for TJ's interest in weapons?
Conclusion.
Speculation.
If you have one objection, make one objection, not all the objections.
I just want to know who she blames.
Continue, overrule.
Say that again.
Okay. Where do you think TJ adopted his interest in guns?
From Scott's influence.
Okay. So since the neighborhood you live in is dangerous, is there any possibility that TJ could have gained his interest in weapons from the people in this neighborhood?
Perhaps from school, but I still think it's from Scott.
Okay.
I never really have blamed TJ. It is the kids he hangs out with who causes the trouble. They are bad influence.
Here you say that the kids in your neighborhood you chose to raise TJ in are the reason that TJ gets in trouble. Is there any possibility that they're the reason for his interest in weapons as well?
Ask an answer.
Sustained.
The only problem I've ever had with TJ was in January 1993 when he was involved in a fight between two groups of kids in the neighborhood. The police broke it up and took everyone to the police station house. There were weapons involved, including 1 or 2 handguns and some switchblades.
So the people you allowed TJ to be hanging out with have access to guns and switchblades? It's a yes or no?
Yeah.
But you still hold firm that Mr. Walker's influence is the reason for TJ's interest in weapons and not the people you allow him to
Ask
hang
an
out with.
answer.
Sustained.
Did you know that TJ brought your firearm to school multiple times?
I was unaware.
Did you know that he was taking your firearm on a regular basis?
No.
How do you feel knowing that he had full access to a deadly weapon?
I don't know. It's bad because I've told TJ multiple times I'm going to do that.
Could you have done more to keep your child and others safe?
I personally don't think I would. Maybe Carl, but he knows he me and him tried our best.
You don't think it would have been beneficial for you personally to lock up the gun and personally make sure that your son is being safe away from this?
I trusted Carl to do it. He has more experience than I do.
Maybe we should.
No further questions, Your Honor.
No. You know what's good for me.
Defense, may call your next witness.
TJ did not bring the gun to school on multiple occasions. He only brought it once.
I did.
He didn't say he brought it to school.
I said
Yes,
no.
you did.
You said multiple occasions.
Past is in the past.
Testimony. No, that's your testimony though.
Just putting it out there.
Thank you.
That's your testimony. Thank you. I don't think it really is.
We'd like to call Sherry Butler.
Yes.
Just the process in the past, right?
Yes.
I swear to tell the truth. I swear the whole truth. Nothing but the truth. So help me God.
State your name for the record.
My name is Terry Botner.
And what do you do for a living?
I am a counselor for the pre-juvenile diversion program in Shermansville, New Colombia.
How long have you worked there?
I worked there for 4 years.
And what has brought you to this line of work?
I used to be a physical education teacher at a school, and through my time there, I saw a lot of violence, gun-related, and drugs. And I decided I needed to do more to keep kids from going down the wrong path and getting hurt because of these things.
And what did you do to be more involved to make sure kids were safe and out of trouble?
I created an after-school program called After Hours for kids that I knew were in trouble to come after school to just have a place to be safe and talk about the things they do.
And how long did you have this club running for?
2 years, until Dr. Gannon called me and asked me to become a counselor for the diversion program.
You had mentioned Dr. Gannon. Can you please explain to us who they are?
Yes, Dr. Gannon is a counselor for the pre-juvenile diversion program as well, and he called me to offer me a position as another counselor.
Earlier, you mentioned that you were a high school education teacher. Can you tell us how long you were one of those for?
4 years.
Can you tell us when you first met Tanya and TJ?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Can you tell us when you first met Tanya and TJ?
I first met Tanya and TJ through the diversion program on TJ's first offense, which I found quite odd.
And why were you meeting with Tanya and TJ? Or if I may ask, what were you meeting with them for?
I was meeting them based on TJ's first offense. Like I said, it was quite odd, but his mother, Tanya.
Narration.
Sustained.
You mentioned that this case was odd to you. Why did you feel it was odd?
Because it was his first offense. Usually, kids get a slap on the wrist when it's their first offense and they just go home. Most parents don't really realize what they can do to help their children.
Sustained.
All right. What did Tanya and TJ's relationship seem like?
Their relationship.
It mentions in the application.
And I'm assuming, like Chris earlier, based on your observation, preface what your question was.
Based on your observations, what do you seem the relationship was like?
Tanya and TJ's relationship seemed really good. Tanya really wanted to be in TJ's life, but she also respected his independence.
And what percent would you say Tanya has been involved in TJ's life?
About 90%.
Have you had any contact with Mr. Walker? You'd mentioned that Tanya seemed more involved, so have you had any contact with
Yes.
him?
Although it was quite hard to get in contact with him because he wasn't
Narration.
present.
Sustained.
Can you please share the contact you have had with him with us?
I've had 2 phone calls and a letter.
Can you describe the first phone call with us?
I first called him to inform him of the diversion program and to tell him about TJ's situation, but he responded.
Narration.
Sustained.
Your Honor, we would like to submit Tara's affidavit and. Can you read that call, please?
When I first called Mr. Walker to talk about TJ, he asked if I was a police officer. I explained that TJ's case had been diverted from the juvenile justice system, and I described our program to him. He said he did not want to participate in TJ's family counseling session. I think his exact words were, if TJ's mother is going, what do you need me for? He then hung up.
She's reading that. I'm sorry.
Thank you very much.
So, did Scott want to be involved with TJ's diversion program?
No.
Is there any other times you had contacted Mr. Walker?
Yes.
We would like to submit it.
She's reading
Can you read this one, please?
I called Mr. Walker again to try to explain this problem. Again, he did not want to talk. He said, nobody's going to tell me what to say to my child. I don't let TJ's mother deal with that, and I won't let you. Again, he hung up.
Thank you. All right. Describe whether you had any other contact with Mr. Walker.
I had a letter.
All right. We would like to submit the letter into record. Can you read the cover, please?
I am beginning to worry that TJ is at risk of becoming involved in violent activities. In our sessions, TJ has regularly displayed a fascination with guns and weapons. Based on my professional experience, these types of interests in young people like TJ often are warning signs that the child could easily become a victim or perpetrator of violence. I have already asked you to participate in our counseling sessions, and I will repeat the request here. Judging from your behavior towards me on the phone, however, I doubt that you will be willing to cooperate with us in such a productive way.
And can you describe to us how Scott responded to this letter you sent him?
Best evidence.
Overruled.
He didn't want to participate again. I sent him a letter. I explained what TJ was at risk for, and he did not want to participate.
We would like to submit an evidence. Can you please read what Mr. Scott Walker responded with to everyone here today?
But believe me, putting Tanya and me together in a room is the last thing you want to do to help TJ. I think I know better than you do what is best for my own child, Scott Walker.
All right, thank you. So, how many times have you contacted Scott?
I have contacted him 2 phone calls and a letter regarding TJ's situation.
Okay. In your experience with juvenile delinquents, are there observable patterns in or behaviors when there is an absent parent or parents?
Yes.
Sustained.
No further questions.
What is your name?
My name is Terry Bachner.
What is your current job title?
I am a counselor for the pre-juvenile diversion program.
When did you meet the defendant?
I met them February 14, 1993.
Is it not true that your father left your family when you were a child?
Yes, that's true, but why is that relevant?
Relevant.
Sustained.
slow down? Yeah, you're going a little fast.
Is it also true that TJ's father also left him at a young age?
Yes.
Is it not true that this case closely aligns with your childhood traumas?
No.
Objection irrelevant. It's in her affidavit. If it's irrelevant, why did she talk about it in the first place?
I haven't seen it in her affidavit, but okay, sustained.
Too fast. Yeah. Take slow, please. You got slow ears.
I'd like to submit Terry's affidavit into the record. Please name read number 1.
My father was like that too. In my opinion, divorce and its effect on children is one of society's biggest problems, and it is absent fathers who are to blame. I have no respect for men like Scott Walker.
Isn't it reasonable for the court to consider your inherent bias against Scott Walker?
We could say the same again.
Dr. Turner.
Is there an objection?
Okay,
Is there one?
Thank you for the objection. Overruled.
Repeat the question.
Isn't it reasonable for the court to consider your inherent bias against Scott Walker based on your own childhood trauma?
No, it's not, because my job involves being involved with children with similar situations.
She's answering.
She did answer the question. If you have an objection, make an objection. Otherwise, I'm going to bailiff remove you.
Sorry, Your Honor.
How often did TJ mention guns in your sessions?
Quite often, it was typically our topic.
I'd like to enter this into the record. Please read number 2.
In fact, I think they probably have come up at least once at every session.
And what were Tanya's reactions to these statements?
She did not like them.
Hearsay.
Everywhere else, I'm assuming that he's prefacing it with, based on your observation.
Did TJ ever talk to you about seeing guns in school?
Yes.
Is it true that many kids develop an interest in guns through school and street culture?
Yes.
Objection speculation.
Sustained.
I'd like to enter this into the record.
I frequently saw kids stash guns and drugs in their gym lockers.
So Tanya knew about everyone in school thinking it's cool to own a gun and knows that kids are attracted to guns?
Oh, yes.
Multiple questions.
Sustained.
So Tanya knew about everyone in school thinking it's cool to own a gun?
Repeat the question.
So Tanya knew about everyone in school thinking it's cool to own a gun?
I'm unsure that that's Tanya's opinion, not mine.
Did Tanya know TJ's attitude towards guns?
Yes.
Did Tanya have a gun in her house?
I did not know this information until after this incident. So, yes.
So Tanya didn't tell you everything that was happening in her and TJ's life?
Well, it's more in TJ's life than hers. It was his counseling session.
So Tanya and TJ didn't mention to their counselor, or the one that Tanya specifically asked for, to have him keep out of trouble with guns, about keeping a gun in the house they live with?
Objection. Never mind. Take it back.
I'm sorry, repeat that, I couldn't understand you.
So Tanya didn't tell TJ's counselor, the one that she specifically asked for, to have to keep him out of trouble with guns, about keeping a gun in the house that they live in?
No.
Do you think it would be reasonable if your child has an interest in guns and is surrounded by the need to have a gun, not to keep a gun in your house?
Speculation.
Sustained.
Did Scott have a gun in his house?
I did not know this information, for it was Scott, not Tanya or TJ.
Did you ever invite Scott into the meetings?
Yes.
Why do you think Scott didn't want to come to the meetings?
Because
Overruled.
Sorry, repeat that question?
Why do you think that Scott did not want to come to these meetings?
Because he didn't care about TJ's situation. I described to him what was happening and what to do to help TJ, and he did not help him.
Stayed.
I'd like to enter this in the record. And this one, wait, can you please read this?
If TJ's mother is going, what do you need me for?
I'd also like to enter this.
Believe me, putting Tanya and me together in a room is the last thing you want to do to help TJ.
Both of these times when you tried to invite Scott to the meetings, he said he didn't want to go because Tanya was going. Is that right?
Correct.
Have you ever tried to ask him to come along with just TJ without Tanya being there?
No.
When did Tanya tell you about Carl living with her?
After the sessions. If I knew about it, I would have asked him to come.
Do you believe that Tanya could have done more to help TJ not get a hold of a gun?
Speculation.
Stayed.
I'd like to enter this.
If I would have told Tanya that she would make Carl get rid of it.
So Tanya did all she could to keep the gun away from TJ.
Stayed.
Are we gonna pick this up tomorrow?
First period, we should go.
Okay. Chris, take seats.
So we have closing remarks that will be done tomorrow, 7th period of class, and Judge Allen will conclude this trial. Thank you.
Do we just nice for that? Huh?